Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, March 9th of 2026. We'll start with the weather, as we always do, across the Cape and Islands today. What a break from what we've had in the past couple of months. Mostly sunny, a high of 55 today. Areas of low clouds tonight with a low of 40. Tomorrow, times of clouds and sun, high of 53, low of 40, all week in the 50s until the weekend. Tuesday, 53, low of 40, clouds and sun. Wednesday, cloudy, possible couple of showers hitting us. High of 55 during the day, a 46 in the overnight. On Thursday, becoming windier with a couple of showers. High of 54, a low of 27. On Friday, mostly cloudy, a little bit cooler, a high of 41 and a low of 34. So Thursday into Friday gets a little chilly, but basically all week we should be just seeing the snow go away and coming back to a little bit of perhaps a bit of what spring might be like. And of course, a reminder, you probably sprang ahead over the weekend. If you didn't, move your clocks ahead an hour. Most of them do it automatically now if it's a digital clock that's plugged into the internet. But if you didn't, we moved an hour ahead on Sunday morning. From going to the front of the paper, where the lottery results used to be kept, and we read these because, well, somebody asked for them. If there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org or call us at 508-539-2030 and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information that we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org, click on the listening tab. It's a fully disability compliant website, and under All Reads to the Blind, you'll find 150 chronologically arranged readings, so the most recent are at the top, and you can catch up on anything that you might have missed. We also keep a wide variety of periodicals and literature up there for your listening pleasure, as well as our shopping guides are up there for what's on sale at the supermarket. All of that's free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. For the Mass Lottery results, we go to masslottery.com because the Cape Cod Times goes to press way too early to give you those latest results. If you ask for them, you deserve them. For the numbers game from masslottery.com, for the midday drawing of Sunday, March 8th, yesterday, the results were 9279. Yesterday's midday drawing of the numbers game again, 9279. In the evening drawing last night of the numbers game, 3433. Again, last night's evening drawing of the numbers game for Sunday, March 8th, 3433. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. From the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, Marconi Beach area sees a dramatic bluff loss in 80 years, by Denise Coffey in South Wellfleet. Not yet a year old, the wood stairway leading down to Cape Cod National Seashore's popular Marconi Beach is already straining in its ongoing fight with Mother Nature. With the February 23rd blizzard that blanketed the Cape in snow and down power lines across the region, the bluff behind the stairs eroded further, according to seashore officials. A few feet of sand was swept to the sea underneath the stairway landing. Park rangers used shovels to put sand around the risers. Sand had crept onto stairs close to the landing as well. Since 2001, the stairs to Marconi Beach have been replaced 5 times for an estimated $1 million, according to Cape Cod National Seashore Acting Superintendent Leslie Reynolds. Replacements were built in 2005, 2010, 2018, 2024, and 2025. The $124,000 cost of the 2025 iteration was funded by Friends of the Cape Cod National Seashore after the National Park Service funded the 2024 project with a price tag of $246,000. Is rebuilding those stairs over and over the right answer? Every time we sit around this table, we ask, is there a better way that we can do it? William Burke, seashore historian and cultural resources program manager, said in a January 29th interview. I've seen work groups with the best park minds going over every possible option they have. But we have a standard of public access that must meet code and provide access for all ages and abilities, so we can't just throw a rope ladder down every summer. The Cape Cod Regional Policy Plan of 2025 highlights coastal erosion as a top concern among Cape residents who completed a survey. Second, only do affordable housing. The Times is taking a deep dive into coastal erosion issues on Cape Cod and Nantucket. Marconi Beach is one of 6 seashore beaches. To the south are Coast Guard and Nauset Light beaches in Eastham. To the north are Head of the Meadow Beach in Truro and Race Point and Herring Cove beaches in Provincetown. The seashore estimates that 2,000 people use Marconi Beach during summer days, with about 150,000 visits occurring on an annual basis. Visitors park in a large lot on the bluff off Route 6, where there's a bathhouse as well, and then descend to the beach using the stairs. Marconi Beach bears the name of the famous Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi and is about a mile south of where he made the first transatlantic radio telegraph transmission in 1903. That whole area has seen dramatic erosion over the years. By 1917, the ocean had reclaimed almost 165 feet of bluff, threatening the towers Marconi built, according to information at the Wellfleet Historical Society. Marconi Beach has lost approximately 377 feet from in front of the parking lot and bathhouse since 1947, according to Reynolds. In the last 4 years, a bluff of about 500 feet north of the beach has lost about 36 feet. The location is the site of a U.S. Geological Survey study measuring coastal erosion and nearshore bathymetry. Electrical engineer Eric Margianic was at the site on March 4th, dismantling a weather station that was part of the study. It was damaged in the blizzard, and it needed repair. The camera is kept as close to the bluff as possible, Margianic said. We've had to move it 3 times. At Marconi Beach, given the erosion, will there come a time when stairway replacement costs are too great? Well, that will depend on factors such as the budget, funding streams, contracting deadlines, and available resources of the seashore, Reynolds wrote in a February 18th email. And eroding sand is pulling off into the ocean in winter. Beach levels become lower and flatter than in the summer, Burke said, and that sand accumulates in bars offshore. If you stood on the beach today and didn't move until July, the beach would probably be 10 vertical feet above you, said Burke, who was quick to point out that he's not a coastal geologist. If you want to humanize the ocean, the beach is trying to protect itself by building up bars offshore. The bars capture energy from the waves and force waves to break offshore rather than on the beach. That's the beauty of living and working in a national park, Burke added. Land is constantly being redistributed. Sand is pulled from bluffs in Eastham and Wellfleet, deposited on Truro and Provincetown beaches, for example, he said. There's death but rebirth at the same time, Burke said. You can see the swirling motion of the ocean redistributing sand. If you take all the human capital out of it, it's really such a beautiful, dynamic system that happens every time we have a storm. From a poet's view, the opening phrase from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's "The Tide Rises, the Tide Falls" poem could capture the inexorable work of the ocean, the daily tides, the constant waves. Keeping it local, in this reading of the Cape Cod Times, rare blue whale sightings reported near Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, from the Cape and Islands section of today's paper. This is reported by Heather McCarran. Endangered blue whales made a rare and exciting appearance off Cape Cod recently, thrilling marine biologists and marking 2 firsts for the New England Aquarium's aerial survey team. On February 27th, researchers with the aquarium's Anderson Cabot Center for Ocean Life spotted a blue whale at the base of Ladonia Canyon in the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monument, about 130 miles southeast of Cape Cod. Less than 24 hours later, 2 more blue whales were seen about 15 miles south of Martha's Vineyard, the first time the aquarium has documented the species in southern New England waters. Seeing blue whales outside of their Canadian feeding grounds is rare in the Atlantic to begin with, according to Associate Scientist Catherine McKenna, who was aboard both flights. Finding them in 2 different areas of the ocean, just 24 hours apart, was a first for us, she said. The western North Atlantic population of blue whales is estimated to be only 400 to 600 individuals. Most research focuses on the species' summer feeding grounds in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, making sightings off Cape Cod and especially south of the islands unusual. Before the recent sightings, the aquarium biologists had seen blue whales in U.S. waters just twice, once in the Northeast Canyons Monument in 2020 and once off Maine in the fall of 2023. Encountering blue whales spread out across the waters of southern New England likely means that oceanographic conditions are ripe for them to find food, said research scientist Orla O'Brien. She said blue whales can range over expansive areas of ocean unseen by scientists, so each sighting gives us an important glimpse into their winter and spring movements. During its February 27th flight, the team also documented more than 300 other marine mammals in the monument, including 3 endangered fin whales, 3 endangered sperm whales, about 50 pilot whales, and hundreds of dolphins. The sightings were recorded a month after the federal government rolled back protections for the Northeast Canyons Monument, a unique underwater sanctuary southeast of the Cape at the edge of Georges Bank. Aquarium researchers have spent nearly 10 years observing the marine mammal populations in the area, which is also home to deep-sea corals, sea turtles, and diverse fish. Jessica Redfern, Associate Vice President of Ocean Conservation and Science at the Anderson Cabot Center, has been studying blue whales worldwide for more than 20 years. Sightings in the U.S. East Coast waters, she said, are always special to me. Our aerial survey team has seen them twice in the monument, emphasizing the incredible diversity supported by the monument and why it's so important to protect this special place, she said. The team continues to survey southern New England and the Gulf of Maine with an eye toward getting an understanding of the movements of some of the ocean's largest and most elusive inhabitants. The Cape Cod Times staff photographer Steve Heslop has an article in every Monday, well, pretty much every Monday, Cape Cod Times. It's called The Photo Shoot Section, How to Edit Your Photos Before You Even Take Them, by Steve Heslop. The verb edit is defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary to alter, adapt, or refine. Before a photographer even picks up a camera, many decisions are being made that determine what the final photograph will look like. Photography decision fatigue can set in fast. Where's the vantage point? What lens works best? Simply put, when and where is that elusive, decisive moment? The concept made famous by French photojournalist Henri Cartier-Bresson in his book by the same name. The title in the original French, Images à la Sauvette, roughly translates to Images on the Run. It's called The Photographer's Bible by Clement Charoux, a photography historian. After a week of snowblindness and blizzard fatigue, I needed some downtime with the book. A visit to its pages is a spark plug igniting a basic instinct every photographer has. Grab a camera and get to work. Cartier-Bresson worked long before the bells and whistles era of 2026, back in the middle of last century. Most of his images were made with a humble 50mm lens and a roll of black and white film. Simplify and succeed. It's a way to self-edit your image making even before turning on the camera. Add a heavy dose of patience, and good things happen in front of your lens. During the morning commute, I try to change the route to the Hyannis office slightly every day. Again, yet another form of photo editing. Turn left instead of right, and find an interesting photograph. Recently, I swung by the harbor first thing in the morning. Low tide, flat calm, and a shellfish boat on the horizon heading to shore. Ducks were milling around the pilings. First instinct, which I did, jump out and take a photo. The old photojournalist mantra hardwired in my brain, never miss the shot. But lingering just for another 5 minutes made for a much better composition. The waterfowl got themselves in order. The boat changed angle and framed up in between the poles. Not exactly a decisive moment, but a much more intentioned image than the first grab shot. A bit of time-tested Cartier-Bresson photo magic in action. And there is a picture of a nicely balanced photo, I suppose. Not much of a photo critic myself. Moving on. We're at the midway point in our reading of today's Cape Cod Times. It's a half-hour reading on Mondays. And regular listeners are aware, at our midway point is when we move to the obituaries and death notices that are listed in that day's Cape Cod Times. There are two in today's Times. The first is of Donald Chairs Uwidi of Pocasset, a loving husband, father, and grandfather who passed January 22nd, surrounded by his family. He was born in New York City on June 18, 1938, and is survived by his wife, Judith Ann, and many friends and family. Donald grew up on a farm in Trumansburg, New York, and after graduating from Trumansburg High School, enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. While stationed at Joint Base Cape Cod, Don met Judy, a local Falmouth girl, who would be his wife and dance partner of 64 years. The service sent them to McCoy Air Base in Orlando, but once discharged, Don picked up his hammer and went to work as a carpenter back in Trumansburg. The Uwidis eventually found their way back to the Cape, where they spent the last 50 years in Pocasset. He worked as an independent carpenter and building inspector for Falmouth and Dennis. Even after hanging up his hat as building inspector at 80, it took several unsuccessful attempts at retirement before Don finally hung up his tool belt. No job was too small, and if you needed a hand, Don was there. Always wanted to give back, Don served as president of the Carpenters Union, was on the board of the Otis Civilian Advisory Council in the Barnstable County Fairgrounds, the Bourne Board of Health, and he was a member of the Bourne Sandwich Rotary, the Shriners, a volunteer at the Bourne VFW, the Weary Travelers Club, and a lifelong blood donor with the Red Cross. Don embraced his Finnish heritage. As a member of the Cape Cod Finnish American Club, he and Judy traveled the U.S., attending Finnish-American events. He stayed connected to his roots through his insistence of a sauna in every home he lived in. A Corvette enthusiast, Papa enjoyed taking and talking classic cars with his grandchildren. He and Judy traveled to shows across New England and enjoyed driving his Corvettes in local parades. Above all, Don was a family man. He kept tabs on all the grandchildren, encouraging them to enjoy life even if it might get them in trouble with their parents. He never faltered in his support and love for his children, always with a grin and the best sense of humor. He loved Judy with all his heart. The time spent with family was what they cherished most. Services will be held at the National Cemetery in Bourne on Friday, March 13th at 1:15 p.m. Any donations in his memory may be made to the Otis Civilian Advisory Council at OCAC P.O. Box 651, Falmouth, Mass. 02541. The other obituaries of Kevin McDonald of Falmouth, who at the age of 59 passed peacefully on March 6th. He was the loving long-term partner of Jacqueline Parker and was a very outgoing, caring, loving, and funny man. He grew up in Sagamore and had the Bourne Canal for his backyard, where he enjoyed fishing and catching lobsters. He attended Bourne public schools throughout his childhood. He loved his rock and roll music, with Van Halen being his favorite. He thrived in his work installing and finishing hardwood floors, including one at the home of former President George H.W. Bush in Florida. After spending a few years in Florida, he moved back to Massachusetts, where he met his long-term partner, Jacqueline Parker, who he had his son with. Kevin's greatest joy in life was being a father to his son, Joshua. In addition to his partner, Jacqueline, Kevin is survived by his son, Joshua McDonald of Falmouth, and many family and friends. The services will be private. And that concludes the obituaries and death notices that are listed in today's Cape Cod Times of March 9th of 2026. Moving into the sports section. High school swim and dive. Kaiser and Morgan lead Cape and Island All-Stars by Courtney Jacobs. There were 35 athletes selected as All-Stars for the Cape and Islands League Boys and Girls Swim and Dive 2025-26 season, 3 more than last season. Martha's Vineyard had the most selections on the boys' side with 6, while the Nantucket girls team had the most overall with 8. Those 2 teams also went unbeaten in league meets and finished as league champions. Here are the players who were selected as All-Stars this winter. In Boys Swim and Dive League champion, it was Martha's Vineyard. Team sportsmanship, it was Nauset. And most valuable player, Hunter Morgan of Sandwich. The All-Stars. From Barnstable, Ivan Yaskovets, senior, Barnstable. Max White, sophomore, Martha's Vineyard. Ronan Mullen, senior, Martha's Vineyard. Klaus Smith, senior, Martha's Vineyard. Grady Stahlgren, senior, Martha's Vineyard. Moses Thompson, freshman, Martha's Vineyard. Michael Coletta, sophomore, Martha's Vineyard. William Simmons, senior, Nantucket. Pavlin Alexiev, sophomore, Nantucket. Eli McIver, junior, Nantucket. Andrik Mooney, junior, Nantucket. Marcus Vidanoff, freshman, Nantucket. Robert Graves, sophomore, Nauset. Thomas Olean, sophomore, Nauset. Loring Eldred, senior, Sandwich. Hunter Morgan, junior MVP, Sandwich. And Sam McElvin, junior, Barnstable. Howard Dubner, honorable mention, 8th grade, Martha's Vineyard. Max O'Brien, 8th grade, Nantucket. James Donahue, 7th grade. Nauset. Jack Hopkins, senior, Sandwich. Dan Flynn, senior. Barnstable, individual sportsmanship, Jacob White, sophomore, Martha's Vineyard. Grady Stahlgren, senior, Nantucket. Eli McIver, junior. Nauset, Jack Hopkins, senior. Sandwich, Sam McIlvin, junior. Girls Swim and Dive League champion, Nantucket. Team sportsmanship, Martha's Vineyard and Nauset. And most valuable player, Laura Kaiser of Nauset. The All-Stars, Barnstable, Lydia Stanny, junior. Barnstable, Mary Caholan, sophomore. Martha's Vineyard, Leah Thompson, junior. Nantucket, Zoli Day, 8th grade, Nantucket. Sarah DeSalt, senior. Nantucket, Finley Herlihy, freshman. Nantucket, Maya Johnson, senior. Nantucket, Evie Phillips, junior. Nantucket. Paulina Chumak, 8th grade, Nantucket. Sammy Nielsen, freshman, Nantucket. Layla Nodden, 8th grade, Nauset. Laura Kaiser, senior, Nauset. Edie Spiegel, junior, Sandwich. Abigail Chason, sophomore, Sandwich. Bridget Steele, 8th grade, Sandwich. Brooke Kirtle, junior. Sandwich. Brooklyn Hairston, 8th grade. Sandwich. Olivia Ring, senior. Honorable mention, Barnstable. Addison Harrington, sophomore. Martha's Vineyard. Kyla Webster, 7th grade. Nantucket. Charlotte Brooks, sophomore. Nauset. Clancy Desmond, sophomore. Sandwich. Sahana Junkins, sophomore. Individual sportsmanship, Barnstable. Mary Caholan, sophomore. Martha's Vineyard. Nora Motahari, senior. Nantucket. Sarah Dussault, senior. Nauset. Daisy DeReuter, sophomore. And Sandwich. Brooke Kudrell, junior. Congratulations to all of the Boys and Girls All-Stars. Heading back to the front page, we've read all the local news. Trump says he has no interest in Iran negotiations. Iran is closer to naming a new supreme leader, by Michelle Deal-Cimarron, Catherine Palmer, and Francesca Chambers of USA Today. As the U.S.-Israeli offense in Iran advanced into its second week, President Donald Trump said that he's not interested in negotiations. Instead, he raised the possibility that the war would continue until the Middle East country had no military or leadership at all. Trump said the air campaign could make negotiations a moot point if all potential leaders of Iran are killed and the Iranian military is destroyed. At some point, I don't think there'll be anybody left, maybe, to say we surrender, Trump said March 7th aboard Air Force One en route to Florida after attending the dignified transfer of 6 Americans killed during the initial days of fighting. Tehran is moving closer to naming a new supreme leader after the killing of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, with every indication suggesting his powerful son Mojtaba could take charge, Reuters reported. Israel's military has threatened to kill any replacement for Khamenei. Trump has justified the biggest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq by saying Tehran posed an imminent threat to the U.S. without providing evidence. He's also said Iran was too close to being able to build a nuclear weapon. The U.S. and Israel have discussed sending special forces into Iran to secure its stockpile of highly enriched uranium at a later stage of the war, Axios reported, citing 4 people with knowledge of the discussions. Asked on March 7th about sending ground troops to secure nuclear sites, Trump said it was something they could do later on. The U.S.-Israeli attacks have killed at least 1,332 Iranian civilians and wounded thousands, according to Iran's UN ambassador Amir Saeed Iravani. Iranian attacks have killed 10 people in Israel. At least 6 U.S. service members have been killed, with Iran saying on March 8th it had struck U.S. bases in Kuwait. Meanwhile, more than 32,000 American citizens have fled the Middle East and returned to the U.S. since the war began on February 28th, according to the State Department. In a March 8th statement, the agency said that the government has safely evacuated thousands of Americans from the Middle East, including via nearly 24 charter flights, and directly assisted over 19,000 Americans abroad. More than half of American citizens who requested help so far have turned down U.S. government-provided transportation options, the agency said. Some American citizens wish to remain, while others have preferred to use an alternative departure option. Operations to help citizens leave various Middle Eastern countries affected by the war are ongoing, the State Department said. Israeli forces expanded their bombardment of Iran on March 8th, striking fuel depots near Tehran, while Bahrain said an Iranian attack had damaged one of its desalination points, signaling a widening assault on vital infrastructure across the region. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai said that the attack marked a dangerous new phase of the conflict and amounted to a war crime. By targeting fuel depots, the aggressors are releasing hazardous materials and toxic substances into the air, poisoning civilians and devastating the environment and endangering lives on a massive scale, he wrote on X. Israeli military spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani told reporters the depots were used to fuel Iran's war effort, including producing or storing propellant for ballistic missiles. They are a legal military target, he said. Shortly after the attack, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his government would press on with the assault and strike Iran's rulers without mercy. We have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change, he said in a video statement. We have many more targets. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, March 9th of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.